long weekend here in Canada, so I'm not sure if it's the same everywhere, but it is a long weekend here. So if you're having a long weekend, hopefully you're enjoying the last day before getting back to work. I just want to let you know that Car Cost Canada is there for you. I have a couple of people, actually Nick, I'm going to show a picture from him in a moment, using Car Cost Canada, and people have reported them here in the chats as well, getting a chance to use the service. Sign up using the promo code MOTORMOUTH, and you become an expert member. It opens up more free searches, and it gives you a chance to look for new cars and find out the deals, the discounts, the reduced interest rates, any hidden incentives. And often there are some hidden incentives that you might not be aware about. For example, like first-time buyer, student, maybe if you served in the military, things like that are all available to people by just accessing it through Car Cost Canada. Excuse me. All right, let's get into the pictures. See what we have here today. So we have Jerome Levesque Boucher sent this in from Quebec. This is a 77, I'm going to read it off here. It's a 77 Corvette Special with an L82. It says it's in mint condition. Now, you can see the back window has the glass. I believe it was 1976. They switched from the sort of the notch back, straight window at the back to that curved glass. So that would be the second year for it. Then we have Tibby, who lives in excuse me, I'm going to get rid of that first. Where's get rid of that picture. There we go. Tibby, who is Canadian, who took his Jeep over to Europe, and there he is in Champagne, France, and he got to go to Champagne and of course sample the wares, but also to drive some older French cars. I'm not sure what that one is. Here's a Renault. He said it was an air-cooled 3-speed, which was very fun to drive. Also, there's the famous Dejavaux. That's a very, very nice car to drive. I've had a chance to drive one Dejavaux. It's a lot of fun. And an old Citroën as well. That's not a Dejavaux because I think that's a Dejavaux, but maybe that's sort of like an updated version of it. And there you go. And then Nick sent a picture of in his RAV4 hybrid. He bought this as a 2017. He was thinking of waiting for the Mazda CX-5 diesel, and he said he's glad he didn't do that and picked up the RAV4 and found out about Car Cost Canada. And then I showed you, Jerome sent the Corvette in. So if you want to get a picture through, you can do it by sending me an email at zack@motormouth.ca, zack@motormouth.ca, or zack if you're American at motormouth.ca. Everybody's welcome. All right, so we have Zach. Any news on Celtos? Still no review. I am going to open my calendar here on my computer, and I will let you know that I have it the week of September 14th. So unfortunately, it's not right away, but it is coming, okay? So don't worry about it. We will get it, and I will get the review for you. But right now, we don't have it. That's as soon as I could get it in. This is Roy saying one of the most beautiful cars ever designed by Porsche, the 911 993. I think Roy's saying that because when I put up a placeholder picture for the live Q&A, I put a picture up of my old C4S, my 993. That's what you see. Thanks for being live on a stat day. Well, you're welcome. I'm not getting paid overtime. My son didn't work today at Canadian Tire. Would have been time and a half for him. Daniel says, hey, Zach, great review of... Where is it? Where's it gone? Come on, you can do it. Come on. There it goes. Great review of the Mercedes. I enjoy the way you are presenting cars with Andrea. Well, thank you for that. And last time we did this, it was quite funny because we did the live show, and then I went up to eat dinner, and Andrea goes, did you do something? Did you do a shout out on the live chat? Because I got a whole bunch of Instagram followers. So my Instagram is motormouth_autos, and you'll see that when you start typing it in, motormouth_autos. And then Andrea's is motormouth_Andrea. Andrea. So follow along with her. She's way better at posting stuff all the time than I am. And she's actually helping with my one as well. So follow along if you want to. Yeah, and Andrew's doing a great job. We sort of come to getting into a bit of a rhythm of how we do it. You know, I've been doing car video reviews by myself for 26 years, and now to have sort of a co-host that I'm married to, it's taking a little while to figure out what our shtick is, but I think we're getting there. Raj is here. Raj, nice to see you, brother. Glad that you're here. I always say he looks like The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, in that picture, but that's not bad company. Oscar the Corgi, 2021 Audi A7, 0 to 60 in 5.8 seconds, exactly the same as the RAV4 Prime. The RAV4 Prime is fairly quick car. Yeah, I think that is pretty quick considering it's a family utility vehicle. As you all know, electric motors provide instant torque and give you that great off-the-line acceleration. How much has been made about the ludicrous mode from Tesla and so on. I think it's a bit of a one-trick pony, just straight line acceleration. For me, that doesn't really interest me. But one thing I do appreciate about electric cars, and I do think that the RAV4 Prime will benefit from, is that low-end torque and mid-range torque that you really use all the time in the city. So when somebody's dawdling and you need to get around them quickly, you just put your foot into the throttle and away you go. So electric cars are good at that. And you're going to see that more and more from Toyota as they're going to rely more on the electrification to give you performance. And brands like Porsche have decided that their top models are going to be hybrids. So it's going to be. Still haven't got the pricing yet for the Canadian market on the RAV4 Prime. It's coming sometime this month, but once we get the amount, it'll be interesting to see what they're going to charge for it. Nam is here. Hey Zach, between 912 Turbo S and a 2020 R8 Performance, which one would you pick? I think you're talking about the 992. I'm a 911 guy, so I would say the 911 Turbo S. But an R8 is a very, very special car. There's no question about it. So whichever one you like. I mean, there's no wrong answer between those two. Portuguese Water Dog is here. Nice to see you. How do you like your ceramic coating thus far? Wondering if I should get it on our new car or wait a bit since it's new. It's interesting that you actually bring this up, Portuguese Water Dog, because yesterday I washed our Cayenne. I have a picture of it upside here somewhere. But anyway, we had our Cayenne ceramic coated by 911 Auto Works here in Vancouver in the Burnaby area. And so the number one thing about this coating is that it has properties where things just sort of like when you hose off the car, everything just sort of slides right off of it. Now I do a hand wash with the special soap that he gave me. But what's interesting is, and so this is a really good tell for me. So we have 10-spoke wheels on our Cayenne. And before I had the ceramic coating done, I would always have to spray the iron remover that gets rid of the black spots that pit into the wheels to get it off. Now, I just wash it and use one of those little detail brushes in the spokes, and nothing sticks. So that's a really good tell for me, because if you're not aware, the black stuff on your wheels is the brake dust, but there are particles of iron that come off as well, because your brake rotors are most of them are made of iron. Some are ceramic and other things, but you get little pieces of that on the wheels and they kind of bake in. And the only way to get them off is to use an iron remover, but with the ceramic coating, I can wash it off. That's the first time ever I've ever had that. In addition, I get the soap out, I get the bucket out, I get the wool mitt all ready to go. I wash off the entire car with a hose, and then I'm almost at the point where, do I even really need to wash it? Because almost everything just slides right off. So far, it's been about a month. I'm really, really enjoying it. It's going to be interesting to see as we go into the fall with all the leaves and the winter and so on. But so far, so good. I would suggest if you can afford it, it's not a bad way to go. But there's still nothing wrong with just washing and waxing your car on a regular basis either. Last time I sent you a picture of my ILX, you assumed it was a 2006 model with 200 horsepower. But mine is a 13 with 150. Okay. So the ILX. Okay, I didn't realize that. So that was the. They also had a CSX, which was the one that was before that. No super chats yet. Excuse me. Excuse me for coughing. I always tell you about this. I do have acid reflux, and this is why I'm on this new regime of taking apple cider vinegar as a natural remedy for acid reflux, and it does help, but it's not quite the same. Looks like I'm going to have to order my 992 turnaround on that these days from Porsche. Yeah, well, the thing is, we only get a new 911 about every 7 years, right? So anytime you're going to have a brand new model, there's going to be a lot of people that already have their name on the waiting list. So they will probably have a back order on the 992, I would say, for 18 months to 2 years. And that's the issue you have with a low production vehicle like that. Even though, you know, they do make quite a few of them, the factory where they make them in Zuffenhausen in Stuttgart area makes the 911, makes the Boxster and the Cayman, and also makes the new Taycan. It's all in the original factory area where 911 or Porsche was founded many years ago. And it's a very, I've been and visited the factory. They don't have a lot of room to kind of grow there. So I'm not sure what the capacity is of that. But I would suspect that the 911 capacity is, they're probably going full out on that because the worldwide demand would be off the charts for any new 911. So because it's 7 years, people have been waiting. Once you get a new one, come in.
Is it beer o'clock?
Oh, it's beer o'clock. Hey, look, special guest, come in.
I'm here. Hello. I wouldn't want you to get thirsty.
Where's
Hello. Jack's at a friend's.
Jack's
so
out.
I didn't want, you to miss out on your beer.
Well, that's very nice of you.
Yeah.
That's why I married you, babe. You're the best.
Good luck.
Cheers. That's a special delivery. Oh, hey, we have a super chat. James is saying, hit the like button. I like that. Thank you, James. Appreciate it. Yeah, people hit the like button. That's good. And thanks for the beer to Andrea. All right. Yeah, so James, I think also the issue is that, yeah, it's just a bigger demand than they have capacity. Hey, Zach, go Canucks. What are your thoughts on the new Mercedes S-Class 2021 interior? I haven't seen it. I didn't see that. I'll have to have a look for that. Have you seen the Telluride with Nightfall package? All blacked out trim. Looks sweet. I really like the Telluride looks. I prefer it over the Palisade. I think it's just cool looking. It's just the right amount of attitude. Some people don't like the front of it. It looks like it's sort of the lights are pushed out to corners. I'm okay with it. If I was going to buy a 3-row utility tomorrow, it's the one I would buy. I would buy the Telluride. I'm a high mileage driver. Do you recommend a Kia Niro? Now there's 3 flavors or 2 flavors. There's the hybrid and then there's the electric. Let me know which one you're thinking of. And what do you mean by high mileage driver? Meaning you drive a lot every day or you put loads of miles on before you sell? Hey, Zach, can you negotiate a used car price and lease it like a 2 to 3 year old lease return? Of course you can negotiate. What you should do is when you're looking at a 2 to 3 year old car is in the Canadian market, go to CanadianBlackBook.com. So say it's a 2-year-old Honda Accord and you type in 2-year-old Honda Accord, 40,000 kilometers, whatever the trim is, and it'll give you the wholesale price or the auction price or what a dealer will pay when the vehicle was traded in. And it'll also give you the average sort of retail price that's in the market right now. So you can see the difference between what they typically would take it as a trade-in versus what they're going to sell it for. Now they have to make a profit, and they often will refurbish the cars, new tires, new brakes, fix any little dents or scrapes or what have you, get the wheels all cleaned up, all that kind of stuff that makes a used car look good, they do. But yes, there certainly is an opportunity for negotiation. Now, some brands actually have active leasing on used cars, typically premium brands. BMW will let you lease a used car. Now, often these cars are coming back as new car lease returns, so the lease is like 36 months. Then you go in there, you negotiate the price, and then you can release it. Typically, though, lease rates on used cars are higher. But that's okay, because if it's all about just, cash flow, and especially if you get to write it off. Now, I'm not sure the case with all of the brands, but you certainly can lease. Now, the other thing you can do is you can go to an aftermarket lease company. So if you go into a dealership and they have a 2 or 3 year old lease, you can ask the business manager, do you have any private lease companies that you work with? And they will refer you to a lease company. They will buy the car and then they'll lease it to you. So that certainly happens. That seems to be more on the higher end than on sort of everyday vehicles. But yeah, there you go. This is Ed saying, not a stat day in Nova Scotia. I'm at work right now. Oh, that's too bad. It's not. It's a provincial stat holiday in Canada. It's not federal. It's provincial. Hey, this is cool. This is a first. Hello from Russia. Nice. We had someone send in pictures last week from Sydney, Australia, or the last show. Yeah, it was last week. So that's really cool. If you want to send any pictures through of some cool cars you've seen, send them to zach@motormouth.ca. We'd love to have you back on the show. Do you have a date when you will be getting the 2021 Toyota Sienna to review? Okay, now, as you can imagine, with all of the changes due to COVID, the car companies are really trying to figure out how they're going to do this. So, having spoken to Toyota, I think what they're going to do is they're going to have the vehicles here in Vancouver, Toronto, and Montreal for everybody to drive, probably for like a half a day to get our chance to drive it and for me videotape it. And then everybody will release our reviews at the same time. So that is going to happen sometime this month. I'm not sure when, but apparently it will be happening. Do you need to do the math to see how long before you will break even compared to the Nero PHEV or hybrid? Okay, so people are answering questions here about that Nero, if you're getting the electric or not. I got a XC60 on loan, not a Macan competitor yet, but will be interesting to see what Lotus can do with it as they're developing for their 2021 SUV launch. Thoughts? Yeah, I think there's been kind of a missed opportunity with Volvo to come out with some higher performance versions of their utilities. Now, they will easily tell you that, hey, listen, the plug-in hybrid is 400 horsepower, but it doesn't feel like 400 horsepower. When you add up the electric motor and the gasoline turbo and supercharged engine together, sure, the number comes out to 400 horsepower, but there's a bit of a disconnect between what a 400 horsepower engine feels like versus this combination. But yeah, I wish they had sort of like, Audi has RS and S. If Volvo had something like that wasn't just hybrid. Now, they have stated publicly that everything is going to be hybrid moving forward, but that's also a bit misleading because a lot of their hybrids are these mild 48-volt hybrids. Jonah's saying, too bad the RAV4 Prime will have availability issues. So the vehicle's made in Japan. The demand already out of the gate, people raising their hands saying they want one, is kind of overwhelming. I don't think Toyota realized how much demand they could generate for this. They also have to work on their battery supply. But it's never a bad thing for a car company to have more demand than supply, because it really does help with creating a buzz around your brand. It certainly helps with resale value. However, it can piss people off waiting for a car that they just can't get. So my thinking on this is, it's interesting. I had this conversation with David Booth, who writes for the National Post. I was with him for the day in Toronto recently, well, before COVID, and we're talking about, who could take on Tesla and be successful. And I said, I think that Toyota is going to be successful with electrification of their fleet. Now, not pure EVs yet, but you're seeing their move towards hybridization over the last few years, and continuing with the new Sienna, which is a pure hybrid, and the new, what's it called, the Venza, and then you have the plug-in of the RAV4. People are kind of getting excited about hybrids again, and they're also getting excited about plug-in hybrids, to the point where the demand for these, you can't get some of these models. So I think that's good for the industry, because to just have a Tesla or nothing attitude when it comes to electrification, I think is really damaging for the industry, because there's a lot of great solutions out there. And Toyota's view is, we would like, so they, right now RAV4 is the most popular vehicle in Canada. About 25% of them right now, 25 to 30% are hybrids. So you're getting 25 to 30% of the people using a lot less fuel, versus electrification, where you have 1 to 2% of people that are using zero fuel. If you can get more people to use a lot less fuel, you have a greater impact on the environment than having a very small percentage of people using nothing. It's just straight numbers. Okay. Oh, Raj is saying, how did you like the SLS? I think it's going to be a future collectible. So if you didn't follow along on Instagram, it's motormouth_autos. That's mine, and that's where I posted the picture of the SLS. And motormouth_Andrea, who just brought the beer in because she's so sweet. There she is there. And I put a couple of pictures up of the SLS. So my buddy at Core Cars phoned me up and he said, I've got this car. Do you want to do a video on it? I'm like, oh, hell yeah. I thought it is going to be a future collectible. If Mercedes-Benz doesn't bring out another gull-wing styled car, this car will certainly be a collector for the long term. If they decide to go back and do another gull-wing car, I think that could really affect the resale prices of the SLS. But just the thing is, it's got such a long hood. It's just a big cock on wheels. That's really what it is with gull wings. It's just a big phallic symbol on wheels. So anyway, there will be a video of that coming this week. And if you want to follow along, it's motormouth_autos for me, and motormouth_Andrea for Andrea. I have an opportunity to purchase a 98 Canadian Integra Type R with 6,000 kilometers for 35. Should I pull the trigger? I would suggest that 35,000 Canadian. Yes, I think that sounds like not a bad deal. These things, especially with so few miles on it, if you can get that and it all checks out and it's not been in an accident or anything, yeah. Who had one? One of the PR guys in Toronto had an Integra, and he kept on telling me the stories about what they're fetching now. Just go to Bring a Trailer and look up Integra Type Rs and see what they've sold for in the U.S. in U.S. dollars recently. I think it's going to be much more than 35,000 Canadian. Now, don't take my word for it. Please double check. A bit off topic, but since you follow business news a lot, I thought your thoughts on gold prices. I got to tell you that I am a big business news kind of nerd. I listen to CNBC all the time. I watch it all the time. I got to tell you that since the stock market has gone so crazy during COVID-19, I've just tuned the whole thing out. It's not based in reality. Tesla, as the most valuable car company in the world, isn't based on reality. Gold prices, what they are, isn't based. Like I just don't understand it. Like I have no investments in the stock market right now because I think that there's got to be a massive crash. You can't have 40 million people out of work in the United States and have record high, record high COVID rates and record high stock prices. It just doesn't add up to me. So I don't really have an answer for you other than about 8 weeks ago, I tuned out of the whole thing. I'm not even following it because I think it's all ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm kind of thinking maybe around the time of the U.S. Presidential election, there might be a major reckoning in the stock market. And then at that point, I'll be investing again. But right now, no. I think it's crazy. But I've probably missed out on a crap load of money. I want a RAV4 Prime as well. I guess I'll wait until they can produce more. There's no way I'm going to pay above MSRP. Zach likes Porsches, and when it's Porsche versus another car, Zach will often choose Porsche. Yeah, well, I'm glad you picked up on that. Look at the shirt. Do you see the shirt? Look at the shirt. It says Porsche on it. Do you think the U.S. buyers will get the new Corolla Cross Hybrid or the Yaris Cross in the States? I think that the new Corolla Cross looks really cool. Actually, it's probably one of the best looking Toyotas. If you haven't seen this car, do yourself a favor and Google Corolla Cross. So it's a small crossover, yet another crossover vehicle that is going to be smaller than the CHR, from what I understand. And it looks fantastic. And it has been announced for, I believe it's the Chinese market. But yeah, there's going to be lots of room for more crossovers. You might have heard just this week that Hyundai has dropped the Accent. They're not going to be bringing it in for next year. So that means that we have Micra out of the game. We have Fiesta out of the game. We have Yaris out of the game. We have Versanote out of the game. All of these subcompact cars are disappearing. So my guess it wouldn't be Yaris. It would be Corolla Cross. Huge Haggis is here. Haven't seen you in a while, Mr. Haggis. No questions today. Just sip and slam, Zach. Well, I'll sip and slam. You guys have to slam the like button. I have a sip and a cough, as you can see. Now, I do have this acid reflux thing. What you guys don't know is typically before I would start the live show, I would like eat 3 Gaviscon before I'd start this. Caulking the axle. Dude, nice to have you back. Some of the Mercedes has built-in dash cams. Do you think built-in dash cams will be the next ubiquitous add-on? Have a subscriber sip for me. I just had a sip, caulking the axle. I think what happens typically in these situations is once one manufacturer makes it as sort of like available on all their cars, everybody else will follow suit. It's interesting because Toyota announced a dash cam kit that is installed at the dealership on pretty much all of their models. I think it's $299, which isn't cheap, but it's kind of integrated into the rear view mirror, and it is available, and it has motion sensor and all that kind of stuff, and I think that's a pretty good idea. But I don't understand why all of these cameras that are on cars, there isn't just a buffering hard drive system that just records everything for the last 30 minutes or 10 minutes or even 5 minutes. So if you do get in an accident or anything happens, you do have some recorded information. I think it's going to be happening. I'm really surprised that manufacturers haven't included it. And it would be easy to have it in the head unit. Do you want to activate this? It's for privacy reasons, right? That's probably why. But if you had to put in a code to activate it, and then do you want this to record every time you drive the car? Yes. Do you want it to record only with this key? Yes. Those sorts of things. I don't understand why they haven't done that. And the fact that there are so many cameras on cars now, I don't get it. So, and there are so many of those dash cams being sold. Like, you see them everywhere. TK Porsche, thank you for mentioning the apple cider vinegar. You convinced me to give it a try. Now on day 3. Yeah, so I've been taking this apple cider vinegar. Somebody actually here on the live chat suggested it. And also look up TK Porsche. Look up Dr. Berg, B-E-R-G, Berg apple cider vinegar. He does his video on it. And it kind of makes sense. I got to tell you, I do feel better. It's when I talk loudly like this, like when you're doing these, you're kind of enunciating, you're using more air, and that's why it happens. But for the most part during the day, it's been really good. Stefan says beer is the best for your problem. Yeah, I don't know about that. Any intel on the new Mazda engines? I heard there will be introducing 4.9. I don't know the specifics on that. They are going to be introducing an inline 6-cylinder rear-wheel drive Mazda 6, which sounds exciting. It could be the best car no one buys. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how things get going here over the next little while with all these different iterations of brands that are all kind of meshing together. So Mazda, Toyota, what else is, and Subaru all sort of meshing together and doing some sharing. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out. How did you get to this point in your career? Well, that's a long answer. I've been test driving cars. I first started test driving cars in 1992. I remember one of the first cars I ever got was a Volkswagen GTI. I can remember these two cars had a big impact on me. Volkswagen GTI and a Volkswagen Corrado with the VR6 engine. Now that was a great week having that car. And I started test driving them for the radio, believe it or not. I worked at a radio station here in Vancouver called Z95, and we used to have a half-hour talk show, believe it or not, on radio, on FM every day. And once a week I would do 5-minute automotive thing. It was called Boys Under the Hood. And then I moved to TV in 1994. I had a show called Street Test that was on a local cable channel here. So in Canada, especially in the 90s, every cable outlet used to have cable access as part of the regulations. In order to sell you cable for your home, to watch TV, you actually had to provide community access programming. So I went to the guy who ran it at a place called Delta Cable, DCTV, and I said, can I get a car show? We'll do it once a month for 30 minutes. And he said, yeah, great. You start next week. And I'm like, well, that was easy. So we did that for 8 years. And then in that time, I started writing for the newspapers. And then in the early 2000s, I was I then started working at a local TV station here called BCTV or Global TV. And then I said the same thing to them. Can I have 5 minutes a week on the news to do an automotive review? And they said, sure. And then a local production company came to me and said, hey, we want to start a new car show. Would you like to audition for the host? And I did that. Then I became the host of Driving TV. And I did that up until the new year of this year. So that was 16 seasons. Now I've become one of the hosts of Motoring TV. And in 2011, I started this YouTube channel. So I started out doing automotive stuff part-time. So I used to work in regular TV and radio here locally in Vancouver, and then I did the car stuff on the side. And then in 2006, I became automotive exclusively. That's all I do now. So that's a bit of a history. There's a bit of a backstory to that, though. So my dad is a retired newspaperman in Toronto. And he had buddies who did automotive reviews for newspapers. And they used to come by with these test cars. And my dad also got some test cars for his newspaper called the Medical Post in the 80s. And I got exposed to this world. I mean, there's a world where people will give you a free car every week. You get to test drive it, and all you have to do is talk about it or write about it or whatever. So that's how I was kind of exposed to it. So it's interesting. So hopefully that answers your question. And hopefully some of you find that interesting. My friend tells me his 18 Honda CR-V Touring has been in the shop 4 times to fix the engine. Is this a known problem? It must be one expensive bill. So there is a known issue with the 1.5 liter turbo engine called oil dilution, and what happens is as the piston is going up and down in the sleeve of the engine, so the piston's going up and down, fuel leaks past the piston through the sleeve and into the crank. Okay, so that's fuel getting into the oil pan, and that can be a problem. Especially noticeable for people who drive short trips. So the question I'd have for you is, Mr. T, is do they live somewhere where they don't drive very far? So this is especially bad for people who drive short distances and for people who live in cold climates. So if those two things are prominent, then that can happen to that engine. Jonah is saying there's also a Nero plug-in hybrid. So you can look at the Nero if you're talking about a Nero, whether it's a hybrid, a plug-in, or the full electric. Now it's the same over on the Hyundai side. It's called Ioniq. So they're sister vehicles. Which is better, a Mazda 6 Turbo or a Toyota Camry XLE or XSE? Well, they're quite different. I would suggest that the fact that the Camry is still available with a 6-cylinder engine is kind of unique and is going to be going away at some point. Toyota will phase that out. Honda did. They got rid of the V6 and went to the 2-liter. So that is something that is appealing to some people, to have a V6 available. Okay, but the turbo in the Mazda 6 is a quite a satisfying engine. It doesn't have that sort of really peaky horsepower that you get from some turbocharged engines. It has a lot of low-end grunt, which is kind of satisfying for driving in the city. I suggest you try them both and see what you think. But for a lot of people, the fact that Camry's still available with a V6 is appealing. So James is saying there are 992s available in Edmonton, Vancouver, Calgary, all black, silver, white, not my colors. One of the things is that in British Columbia now, we have this super high luxury tax that they put on. And this was to basically tax a lot of the foreigners that moved here from mainland China. They're not citizens, and then a lot of them aren't paying taxes. Because they don't declare their worldwide income. So they decided, well, let's tax them on the stuff they really want, which are consumables. So houses, they put a foreign buyer's tax on houses, and also high-end cars. So I wouldn't be buying a vehicle over $150,000 in, I think what's the tax, 25 or 30%? It's outrageous. Excellent review on the orange EcoBoost Mustang. What a beautiful color. I really enjoy driving that car. So basically what it is the 2.3 liter engine, up to 330 horsepower, still has 350 pound-feet of torque, but the exhaust actually sounds good for a 4-cylinder. It's a really nice balanced car. It feels fun to drive. It feels light, but the only issue I have with it is expensive. And you would always be thinking to yourself, should I have gotten the GT and got the V8? And I think that's why I couldn't totally get my head around the idea. It's still fun though. If they could sell it for less money, it would certainly be a car worth looking at. We're not getting the Volkswagen Arteon shooting brake here in the U.S. Are you getting it in Canada? That's a hard no, unfortunately. I did email Thomas Tetzlaff from Volkswagen Canada, and he said no. He laughed, actually. He went, ha, 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 ha. That's funny. That's too bad because it is a cool-looking car. Raj is saying, is Chrysler and Alfa Romeo Ferrari in some sort of partnership? Yes, yes. FCA, Fiat Chrysler Automobiles, and Fiat owned Ferrari, and then they spun Ferrari off a few years ago as independent companies so they could sell the shares. So it used to be under the Fiat umbrella, and then they spun it off. Now the shares from the controlling interest is still under Fiat, but you can buy Ferrari shares on their own. And now you have the Peugeot relationship, which has some crazy name that they've just announced a week ago. I can't remember what it is. Yes, so Alfa is part of FCA, Ferrari as a sort of an offshoot is, and Chrysler. Ethan says, what do you think of the 2020 Jetta versus the Sentra? I have to tell you, the new Sentra really, really impressed me. I was pleasantly surprised with that car. I like the way it drives. I like the way it handles. I like the way it looks. I like the interior. They've improved the CVT quite a bit. And I think if you are in the market for a compact car, you should give it a shot. Also, they've done a great job, at least in the Canadian market here, with pricing. So, yeah, give it a shot. What does the Jetta have in its favor? It's bigger back seat, conventional automatic transmission, but what you give up is independent rear suspension. It has a torsion beam rear suspension, which is actually very well done. One thing I don't like about the Jetta, what do they call it now? One of the designers told me what the name of it is. It's called the cat gap, the space between the wheel arch and the wheel, where a cat will go and sit in there. I think that's the name of it. You can look that up. The wheel gap is called the cat gap. So a cat will jump in there. Often cats will jump in on the front wheel of a car because the engine is warm, and they sit in there and they get warm. Dead cat gap, I think is what they called it. Because cats will get in there and then they'll often be schmucked. So that's a kind of a fun little trivia thing to look up. But the cat gap between the wheel arch and the wheel is, in my opinion, on the Jetta too high. Visually, it doesn't look good. If you get the GLI, that's the performance model, they drop that down and you add in independent rear suspension. Now, they're both worthy cars in their class, so go and try them out. Have you ever driven a Lada? Of course. Well, this was a little utility. I'm trying to remember the Niva. We had a chance to do an off-road in the Niva in the early 90s. I remember the thing would just scramble over anything. They're great little cars for off-roading. Very basic, very basic. Hey, Zach, thank you for the nice shows. Always, when you are in Europe, can you do a review on other cars? The Jimny, that would be cool. And you think about the, what do you think about hydrogen engines? Unfortunately, when I go to Europe, it's usually for 2 nights. So here's the way it typically would happen. Now, these are all the trips I would go on for car launches. So say it was a Monday. I would leave on the Monday evening. I would fly overnight. I would arrive in Germany or Italy or France or wherever the hell we were going. And we would get into our hotel probably middle of the afternoon. And then you'd have a couple of hours to maybe walk around the town you were in. Then it's dinner, and then it's off to bed because you got to get some sleep. Up in the morning, you get to drive the car that day, and then dinner, sleep, up, and then to the airport. So not a lot of time in there to get any extra cars, but yeah, I don't know when we're going to get back on an airplane and fly to Europe for a car launch. I don't think it's going to happen until there's a vaccine. I don't think that's happening anytime soon. So there you go. But I would love to do a Jimny. There's somebody here locally. I saw him. He's got a minty original Jimny. It's just beautiful. That vehicle, I think, if they could get it in to North America based on the crash test, if they could get it into the country, I think it would sell very well. Zach, another Zach is here. Just wanted to say thank you for the awesome GLE review. The wife loves it. Drives so smooth and is great. You're awesome, man. That's awesome. Well, good for you. Well, you look pretty young there, Zach. And you got a GLE? All I have to say is good for you. Because you don't look like you're even old enough to drive. How old are you, Zach? How old are you, brother? Josh is here tonight. Good to see you, Josh. We used to have a Ford Flex. It was the best all-round car my dad thinks he's ever had until his 750i. More than his Range Rover and an Infiniti JX. Now, Josh, I have said ever since the Ford Flex came out, it is one of the best vehicles that Ford has ever made. It is it. A lot of people couldn't get their head around the looks of it. I always liked it, that kind of like surfer woody wagon kind of look. But if you wanted a vehicle with the most space on the inside for 3-row crossover vehicle, it had everything licked. You could get it with the 365 horsepower EcoBoost turbocharged engine. It went like a bomb. It had a great platform. It used the old Volvo S80 platform. So many of you might not know, but Ford used to own Volvo. And when they owned Volvo and they used to own Land Rover, they took all of the best technology that they could from those companies, and then they sold it on to Geely. So Volvo is now owned by a Chinese company, but it was owned by Ford before that. And a lot of the success that Ford had over the last 10 plus years, they were using Volvo platforms. So that Ford Flex ran on an S80 Volvo platform. That's when they started in implementing things like blind spot warning and things. That was all taken from Volvo. And then that 3.5 liter EcoBoost engine, the same one that's used in the Ford F-150, went like a bat out of hell. That is a great product, super fun to drive. And you had the all-wheel drive system from Volvo as well, from what I understand. So I am a Ford Flex fan, especially with that engine. Zach, any hope Toyota will improve the E all-wheel drive through its collaboration with Subaru in the near future? Well, Subaru doesn't have any secret sauce when it comes to E all-wheel drive. Subaru is known for their symmetrical all-wheel drive system, which is a real mechanical link. So you've got the equal length drive shafts, which is their symmetrical part of it. E all-wheel drive, there is no connection between the hybrid engine at the front and the wheels at the back. So it will be the other way around. Toyota will be offering that technology, that hybrid technology, to them, not the other way around. We got a super chat here. I'm going to go to the bottom. Who do we have? Jorge, have a Bitburg Pilsner. Have one on me. Cheers. Thank you for the super chat. I do have some Pilsner. I have some Pilsner Arkel. Now, I didn't pick the beer tonight. Andrea did, and I appreciate the Stella. But we have some Pilsner Arkel in the fridge downstairs. But I'll take your advice. So what is it called again? Bitburger? Okay, I'll look for that. I love Pilsner. It's my favorite beer. It's my favorite beer. Pilsner is. Yes, I do love it. Steve Murphy. Thoughts on upcoming Hyundai Santa Cruz versus Honda Ridgeline? Yeah, so the Santa Cruz is kind of like a utility-based pickup truck. There's no end to the utilities that car companies can introduce. There's just going to be more and more and more of them, to the point where everything's just going to be freaking utilities. It's sad. I think that, it really is. Thank God there's still some sports cars around. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what the details are. Cash Malone, what's the first car I should get? Well, it all comes down to your budget. I always suggest people for a first car, great choices if it's budget, but your name is Cash Malone, so I'm not sure how much cash you got. But Civic or a Corolla, pretty damn simple. Buy one of those. Not that powerful. You can't really get into too much trouble. Reliable, safe, great resale value, great repair record. Buy it, learn how to drive, and then once you get better at driving, find something more fun. Mazda's trademark CX-10, CX-90 in Europe, and rumors say it is highly likely that the CX-1 and CX-9 to replace the CX-10 to 90. The model numbers sound similar to Volvo. XC50 example. Yeah, so maybe that's true, is that they're gonna change the nomenclature of how they do things. It just seems that some brands That's all they do. Like, I mean, Infinity. That's all Infinity did. They just changed the names of all their cars. They didn't make them any better. They just changed the names. Mazda does seem to be. What did I see? There was some vehicle I saw that was introduced in Japan by Mazda. I can't remember now. Is it worth waiting for the Mustang Mach-E versus an Audi e-tron or Tesla Model Y? I don't know, man. You ask the same question every week, and I love your enthusiasm and I appreciate it, but you know what? Like I said every single time, it depends on your budget. This is the thing about electric cars. They ain't cheap. So I'm not sure how much you want to spend. I think the Mach-E is definitely going to be, if they can pull it off and have it as good as it looks and it is on paper, that's a compelling story. General Motors is going to be introducing a whole bunch of EVs over the next couple of years. So Volkswagen's going to be in the market with the ID4. There's going to be more and more and more and more of them. The problem you have is if it's not a Tesla, will anybody buy it? And unfortunately, that's going to be the case for some brands. I don't think it'll be the case for Volkswagen, but we'll have to wait and see, because I think it's kind of sad the way that it's going. That people just assume that Tesla's the only thing in town. And unfortunately, it ain't. Super Chat. Watched your review of the 2.3-liter Mustang. Do you think Ford is purposely pricing the 4-cylinder in order to justify continued production of the V8? No, I don't think so. I think they're just trying to see what the market will bear. Now, as you know, domestic brands are famous for pricing a car and then the real selling price is not that, right? So that's where you go to carcostcanada.com and see what kind of incentives and rebates there are in a car. You see it all the time with pickup trucks. If you ever price the pickup truck online and you see what they charge for them, it's absolutely ridiculous. And then what the actual transaction price is very different. So that's the one thing I would say in the favor of the EcoBoost Mustang is, yes, it's kind of expensive, but I don't think anybody's really paying the whole price of that car. There's definitely going to be wiggle room on that. Now, here's the thing I didn't mention in the review, and I probably should have, is that this is also an alternative for the GT for world markets. Now, in North America, it's 5-liter Mustang all day long, right? But in other markets, you pay a road tax. See, a lot of people aren't familiar, and people who are watching from Europe can verify this. When you buy a car, you pay insurance, but you also pay an annual road tax. If you've ever been to the UK, they put these round circles, these medallions on the windscreen, and that shows that you've paid your tax for the year. And that tax in most countries is based on the size of the engine. So having a 2.3-liter 4-cylinder engine, but higher horsepower, keeps it underneath, say, a 2.5-liter engine and produces a lower tax cost. So having a 5-liter V8 engine in many parts of Europe specifically is a really big tax hit. So in North America, you buy the car and you pay the tax when you buy the car. But in many parts of the world, you pay a yearly tax based on maybe the weight of the vehicle or the size of the engine. And that's why I think that car exists. It exists because the Mustang is a world car. So they're offering it here as an option for people, but really where this will sell will be in countries where they have that tax situation. Make sense? There you go. All right, I got to find out where the hell I was. All right. Thoughts on the 2020 Mercedes-Benz GLC 300 versus the Acura RDX? I'm a big fan of the GLC, even though it's kind of in its last year or so. There is going to be a new C-Class shown this fall, and there will be a new GLC or the C-Class utility version following after that. Even though this vehicle is sort of in its last year or so, it's still a very current car. And I really do like it. I like the calibration of the turbo 4-cylinder with the 9-speed automatic. They did a very good job with that. And for me, it comes down to drivability. Often people will say, well, this car's got more power, this car's got more torque. But if it's not as drivable, it doesn't really matter. And the one thing I will say in the favor of the Mercedes-Benz is like that little tip-in, toe-in throttle adjustment you make will drop the transmission to the right gear, get you into the proper power curve, and get you moving down the road. It's a rewarding experience. So the calibration of the transmission and the engine, the way they work together, is vitally important to the way it feels to the driver. Is it a satisfying vehicle? Now, vehicles that have the opposite of that, where you put your foot into it and you're waiting for the transmission to make up its mind what gear it's going to go into and all of that, can be frustrating. So even on paper, one might have more horsepower than the other. It comes down to the way it performs. Now, it also comes down to the way that the all-wheel drive systems work. And I would say that the super handling all-wheel drive, on paper, it does do its job, and you can get it to be a performance-minded all-wheel drive system. But if you're just driving it normally, it doesn't really feel special. So I do like the RDX. I still think it offers the most value in the sort of entry-level premium space. You get a lot of bang for your buck, but the GLC is a damn nice vehicle. They did a very good job on it. TK, Porsche's back again. How do you explain the high number of cool collectible cars you see on your walks? Something to do with taxes, or is it just a Vancouver old car love thing? Okay, so thanks for bringing that up. And once again, it comes back to Instagram. Okay, follow along. It's motormouth_auto, or auto or autos. Anyway, you'll find it. Motormouth_auto for me on Instagram, and Motormouth_Andrea to get Andrea's Instagram. You get pictures of her in the skirts like that. And I have a series on my Instagram called Cars on My Walk. And we have a dog, and he goes for lots of walks, and I take my phone with me, and I take pictures of all the cars I see. And some people don't believe that it's real, that I'm taking all of these car pictures. So a couple of things we have in Vancouver. One is we have good weather for old cars. So we don't have the salt here on the West Coast like you do in other parts of Canada or the eastern United States. So no salt. So cars, old cars last a lot longer here. And there's also a lot of people are bringing in the Japanese or the JDM cars, the right-hand drive utility vehicles, and some of the little the K cars. They're bringing those into the Canadian market. So there's quite a few of those around. Then in Vancouver, we have the added layer of a lot of wealthy immigrants have moved here and buy a lot of fancy cars. So Vancouver, all the cars you see on my Instagram are within a 10-minute walk of my house. And they're everywhere. Like I'm just like, I'll just give you a couple of examples. And then you get the older Land Rovers. There's lots of Land Rover Defenders around and so on. So some of the cars that I've had on here. Old Porsche 993s, Land Rovers, old Volvo station wagons, Jaguar XK150, original Mini, old Mitsubishi Pajeros, lots of JDM cars, old Chevy trucks, and so on. So it's all on Instagram. So there you go. But thanks for the shout out on Instagram. I appreciate that. Hey, here's a good one. There's apple cider gummies now. Check Amazon. All right, I'll do that. You don't want the pot gummies. That can go sideways in a hurry. Okay, we have 200 plus people on the live show now and only 90 thumbs up. You guys can give me some thumbs up. You know what'll happen? Some dick will give me a thumbs down. But that's okay. I got broad shoulders. I can handle that. Zach, regarding the comments earlier on Porsche, I agree with you. It's the number one make. Not everyone is lucky enough to drive one, but if you do, you realize how special they are. I get a real soft spot for Porsches because Porsches are prestigious, certainly, and that they're not like supercars, but they straddle the line between sort of luxury and supercars in a nice spot where they have a lot of everyday functionality, right? Even the sports cars are very practical to own, but on the other hand, they're still sporty and luxurious. They kind of sit in this unique spot, and they've been able to really cultivate a brand following. So there you go. All right, we're up to 119 thumbs up. We can do it. Let's get to 150. Hit the thumbs up. This is Cam saying, why not use a wearable mic? Less voice projection, less acid reflux. Until about 3 weeks ago, I did. I wore a lav mic, a lavalier microphone. Now I have this. Can you hear that? That's a shotgun microphone. It's got nothing to do with the microphone. I still project the same way, whether I have a mic on or not, or if it's just over here. The camera's really close. Like, I can touch the camera. It's very close. This is John saying, I want to get your opinion about taxi drivers here. One would think that they'd be really good drivers, but they're the worst drivers on the road. Thanks and stay safe. Here's an interesting thing. I have been in many taxi, many Uber, and unfortunately, I have been on press launches where we are picked up at the airport by a shuttle company service and then taken to our hotel and then brought back to the airport afterwards. I would say the vast majority of the drivers are terrible drivers. I agree with you. I get in taxis and I say to my wife, holy man, that's a terrible driver. There are really a lot of bad drivers on the road, and they're just not aware of how to drive properly. And it's not just taxi drivers. Uber's the same, and some of these shuttle guys. I mean, they're professional drivers, and they're terrible drivers. I've got a funny story. We were in China driving from Shanghai downtown out to the airport, and that's a long drive. It's about 45 minutes to an hour. And the guy who was driving us, it was arranged, we were with Volkswagen. They had a local sort of car company, like a livery company, take us to the airport. So I'm in the back seat. I'm right behind the driver. And then sitting in the front seat is Thomas Tetzlaff. He's the PR guy from Volkswagen. And sitting beside me in the back seat is Brian Chow from Everyday Reviews. And we're driving to the airport. And this guy, he was like, all of a sudden we're driving on this big, like, 5-lane highway. And all of a sudden he starts jamming on the brakes. And then he would be driving. And then all of a sudden he would burst out laughing. It was the weirdest thing. He didn't speak a lick of English. So I said to Thomas at the front, I said, what the hell is going on up there? He goes, he says, he's falling asleep. He keeps on falling asleep, and then he jams on the brake, and then he wakes up, and then he's trying to keep himself stimulated. So it was like that for about half an hour. And I said, are you ready to grab the wheel? If we need to. The highway was empty and we're driving along, and it was the weirdest thing. The guy was falling asleep behind the wheel. It was the weirdest thing. Anyway, we made it, thank God. Here's a good question. Thanks for having a great show. Who buys the cars that automakers send to journalists? They sell them to general used cars. Okay, so a car comes into the press fleet. So a company like Toyota or Ford or whomever, they'll have, say in Vancouver, anywhere from 10 to 20 cars. And the cars get miled up. Everybody gets a chance to drive them. When the cars get close to about 10,000 kilometers or about 6,000 miles, they will then either send them to a public auction, but that's to all dealers can bid on these cars, or they'll have like an intranet. They'll have an internal auction. So I'm not sure how it works for each brand, but this is often how it works. So these cars will come into the dealer network of vehicles, and then the dealers can bid on them. And they'll say this is a corporate car. So car companies have many cars that they sell to dealers. Car companies are not allowed to sell cars directly to the customer. That has to go through their dealer network. So they will, say an executive, a vice president has a car, and every 6 months he gets a new one. That car will get sent either to a general auction or internal auction to just the dealer network, and then they bid on it. So these cars then will get purchased by a dealer, and then they'll be sold as, often you'll see it's executive driven or something like that. And you can actually ask for the Carfax and find out where the vehicle was registered and who owned it. And you'll know that it's been a corporate car because it'll say the previous owner was, say, Ford Motor Company of Canada or Toyota Canada or Honda of Canada. I actually ended up buying, without even realizing it, a press vehicle. I bought a BMW station wagon years ago, and then I got the research on it, and I found out it was owned by BMW Canada for 6 months. And I did the math on it, and I realized it was actually a press car that I bought. So there you go. Then they get sold on, and that's how it works. That's so you too could be driving a press car. Hey, listen, I just realized I'm over an hour now. I want to say thank you to everybody that checks in twice a week. Mondays, today's Monday, and then Thursdays, same time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. And before I go, I have to say go Canucks go, hopefully, and go Raptors go. The Raptors are doing well. I'm glad to see they've won again today. All right, enjoy everybody. Glad sports is back. Glad you're here, and I'll see you on Thursday. Bye now.